it's going to be, it could be an issue, not an issue, but something that might happen in the future. But it's best to just know these tools to fix them is clearing your Drupal cache. So we have, let me find our basic page. Let's go to the front end. I'm gonna quickly edit this and make this published again and add it back to the menu. I want to add it to the actual predictive services. Okay. Okay, so we had we created this basic page, and quite a few of you, or a couple of you, weren't seeing your header image. And the reason typically is we had all these users at once trying to upload megabyte file images, and then the server in the back end is scaling and cropping them to fit perfectly. Because if you click, so I'm clicking on my image and dragging it, like that's the cropped image. It's not like kind of like just squished and only seeing just a portion of it. This is actually kind of a derivative saved from the original photo that I uploaded, and that takes some effort from the server, and that being, that's going to take some effort, and if you're not seeing your image, the biggest hint that I can give to you guys, and this goes for if you're not seeing what you're expecting, is go to this little Drupal icon on the top left, and then go and click flush all caches, and this is going to be your friend. And if you don't see what you're looking for, especially with images, this will regenerate that image for you, and typically it just takes one time to flush all the caches, and then it'll regenerate this image and you'll see it. But there are times where you might not see that image created, and just that little link will regenerate the image, and then you'll see it. So that's a very handy tool that I haven't covered in any of those other screencasts, but if you could remember one thing, that's a big thing to remember as far as Drupal goes. Okay, so we had that. Let's do more images. So we're going to really push Drupal and this server to its full capability. So I'm going to click edit. So we have our header image, but let's add a slideshow because everyone needs one. And so let's add up to 2 to 3 images, and they're all going to be cropped and scaled to 855 by 350, so they at least have to be that big. So go ahead, find some images from Pexel and upload them. And of course, you need to give it alt and title text for people with disabilities. And once you're done adding at least 2 or 3 images, click save. And you will, with all these people like hitting the server and trying to do this at once, there's a likelihood of not seeing the image. And make sure you click these little slideshow arrows to like go through them and make sure all of those images were created, because sometimes I've seen this where like the 3rd image wasn't created. So if you didn't like preview them, you wouldn't see it, because you're just going to look at it and be like, oh, well, it's been created because I see my first image. But it's creating 3 images, because literally this page is loading those 3 images at once, and it's just kind of like hiding and shifting them around. So if you don't see that image, what do you guys do? There you go. Okay, sweet. So I'll wait for you guys to finish your slideshow. Okay, so does everyone have their gallery? No? Okay. Okay, let's move on. So we have our basic page with our header image, our slider. We have all the content that a basic page can really do, and so that kind of covers the basic page. But we really haven't covered what the body can do with that WYSIWYG. So let's click Edit again with the with our basic page, and scroll to the bottom where we have our basic page with all that copy in there. And I'm going to cover what is all these features in this WYSIWYG. So the biggest thing to note is most of this is just you basically select whatever content or text that you want to change, and then you click one of these buttons. So let's say the first thing we want to do is we want to add a heading, and so I'm going to add a space above my first paragraph. So I just put my cursor at the beginning and hit return, and that's going to create a new paragraph. And then I'm going to do just type a new header, and I'm going to select that. And this first option right here with the drop down, we have the ability to add different headings to our page. And by default, the page is a heading 1, I think. Let me double check. It should be. I think this is should be, yeah, it's a heading 1. So that's kind of, let's say, reserved for the title of this page. So let's not select that, but we can pick heading 2 or any below. So this is going to be like the subheader of the title. And so all we had to do is just highlight it, select heading 2, and it'll format it for us. And now let's say we wanted to create, and we've already done the bold, italics, and then we've created a link, but let's create a list below this first paragraph. And to do so, we want to put our cursor right kind of in between the two. So I'm going to just put it at the bottom of that first paragraph and click return. So now we have a space in between. So we can just do a like 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be our list. And every time after the word that I want it to end the list, I just put a return. So it looks like we have 3 paragraphs. And to make a list out of this, we just highlight that these 3 words or 3 paragraphs, and then right here I click create a bulleted list or an unordered list, and that's as easy as it is to create an unordered list. And if we want to change it to an ordered list, all we have to do is highlight it again, and then the option button next to it will change it to an ordered list. And if we ever wanted to make a sub item of these lists, so let's say underneath 1, I'm just going to put my cursor at the end and click return. So it's going to click it or create an empty numbered space. If I want to do a sub item, right next to the lists, we have the ability to increase and decrease or indent or increase the indent or decrease it. So we're going to increase it to create a sub item. So we have our sub item, and then if you wanted to, you could do more items below or whatever. And this is, I mean, if you've ever created anything in Word, this is exactly the same thing, and shares kind of the same formatting. If Gmail works pretty close to this as well. So we have our list. And let's say the third paragraph, I want to make that be a block quote. So we're quoting some individual, and this is our attribution to them. So I'm going to highlight this whole paragraph. Typically, it's not like a whole entire paragraph. It's like a few sentences, but this works as in our example. I'm going to click block quote, and what it does is it essentially just indents that whole entire paragraph. I'm just creating examples of everything just to show you like how everything works, and most all of this is self-explanatory, but it is kind of nice to try everything out. Okay, so now we're getting to the good stuff. So let's create an image. So between those last 2 paragraphs, I want to create, I don't know, let's say I'm gonna click pastrami. So like I have my cursor right there because I want to float this this particular image that I'm going to be uploading. So we have to grab a fairly small image. So that's the biggest thing to note is all these, like the header image and the slider image, you can upload a big image and it'll scale it for you, and Drupal, and with the help of the server, is doing that. But when you're inserting images into the body, you should insert the image to the appropriate size. So I would say probably nothing, if you want to float it, nothing more than 300 pixels wide, because this whole thing isn't that wide. That content area is about 800 pixels wide. So we want to have it small enough so we can wrap text around it. So maybe we need to find an image to do so. So we can go back to Pixel, or if you've downloaded a smaller image, you can use that. I'm gonna hopefully find a small image that we can use. 600 pixels. I should have something on my desktop. So I'm going to make sure my cursor is right there. Click the little image icon. So next to block quote, I'm gonna click that little image icon, and I'm gonna click choose. And those logos that we downloaded are definitely going to be small enough, so I'm going to just insert one of those logos. And then I'm going to add an alt text that describes the actual image that I'm inserting. And don't use the alignment options because there's better ways that actually work. For some reason, it's a little buggy in Drupal, this CK editor. Those options, they don't really work that well, but there are other ways to align it. So you can just leave everything else default, click save. Bam, we got our image. So here's our image, and now if we, let's say I don't want it to be left aligned, I want it to be right aligned, I can just highlight that image, and at the very top of this toolbar, not very top, but like by the block quote, we have these alignment options. So I'm going to just select right aligned, and now I can see the image is right aligned with the text. So that looks fine. The one thing to note is this is CK editor styling. Your styling in the site's going to look a little bit different. So what's best is to make a few changes, click save, preview, make a few changes. Don't like spend hours on making this epically great page and then forget to hit save and then go back and be like, oh my gosh, it's gone. Like, you know, make quick, you know, small subtle changes, and then you can, you know, preserve all these edits that you're doing and not, you know, freak out when it's not there. Because the other thing too is, like, I baked in some padding for you guys, so it's not butt up against that paragraph, and it's gonna look better when you preview it in the page, so you can see it looks nice, and you got this nice space between the content and the image. When I click and go back to our body, you can see it's butted up against that paragraph, which doesn't look that good, but actually on your site it looks much better. And if we wanted to make this image, to make any changes, if I double click the image, I can remove it. I can also just highlight the image and click delete. That's another way of doing it. It's probably the best way. But I can highlight the logo and left align it. I can even keep it highlighted and make it a link, because, you know, this logo probably should be linked to their site. So I could, this isn't their link, but I'm just going to add a link just to show you that you can. Click save. So now if I save this, so I've made some changes. I want to preview this in context of the site. It's always best. I can see now it's linked. So when I mouse over it, I can see it shows that little hand cursor. So I know it's a link, and I can see the URL below, and it's left aligned. Looks nice. Everything's good. Let's click edit again, and there's a couple more options. So we have the next one. Let's put this at the very bottom. So right at the very bottom, I'm going to just put a return again. So make it an empty paragraph at the very bottom. And I'm going to click the this little globe icon that's the iframe. So we've talked about iframes a little bit. And now let's add a YouTube video. This is like the most common form of adding an iframe to a page is embedding a YouTube video on your site. So let's go to YouTube, and then let's go, there you go, YouTube, and get a, I don't know, this is just whatever is on YouTube. Is there anything good? Oh boy, there's so much bad stuff. So much wrong. Okay, let's do Olympics. Ah, yeah, women's hockey won the gold. She just totally deked out that goalie. So let's observe this for a second. Okay. So let's embed this on your site, because it was because why not? And to do so, all you have to do is click share. Let's see. Wait, it's not share. Is it? Yeah, share, and then embed should be the first option, and then you can copy that URL. And let's go back to our site. And then if you don't put any height and width, it'll be like the smallest possible. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is not at all what you want. So this is the smallest version that YouTube could ever. It's not even loading. Okay, so we definitely need to get a height. So you definitely need to give it some dimensions, and I thought YouTube they change things all the time. I thought there was like a little thing that showed the embedding dimensions. Let me just cheat and see what the dimensions are on this video. 640 by 480. That's a pretty common dimension. So 640 width by 480 tall, and just keep everything the default. I'm going to click save. What's wrong? Are we seeing our YouTube? Should I clear cache? I don't think that's the embed URL. I think that's why. Here, let me. Yeah, it's let's see. Where is that bloody embed URL? Maybe it's because I'm not logged in or something. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so that's a share. That's the share one, not the embed one. So yeah, if you right-click the video and then click copy embed code. Where is it normally? Because it should be right here. Stupid YouTube changing everything. Yeah, I don't know. YouTube changes things. Okay, so at least, yeah, you can right-click and copy the embed code. The problem with this, here, I'm going to go back, click edit. It's going to give you, like, everything. So I'm going to double-click on our iframe. And if we paste it in there, it's going to have, like, all the iframe code, which really all we need is the source. If we wanted to, we could snag the width and height, but really all we need is this source, the URL. So where it says SRC, so stand for source, and then delete everything else so it's just that URL, and then click save. Okay, and save. Now we get the video, and it works just fine. When playback has been deleted. What is wrong with YouTube? Why does it hate it? Oh, it's because it's owned by NBC. Yeah. Yeah. Wah is right. So we have to find a different YouTube video, I guess. So don't use that one that's owned by NBC, and they like restrict you from embedding. Let's see, what would give you the ability to embed? That's probably why they didn't show that. Who allows you to embed content? Let's see. Aha. Okay. Let's embed the Avengers trailer for some reason. Okay, so that so if I go back to that trailer, let's go back. Where are you? When I clicked share and clicked embed, it actually gives me that preview. I guess that's a nice indication that you can't embed it. Is that NBC video, like when you clicked on it, it didn't really do anything, but this gives you the ability to customize your videos. And this is kind of important too. Like even if you're embedding videos from your channel, is to make sure you have this selected with the appropriate options. And really it's this first one, is showing suggested videos when the videos ended can totally shoot you in the face when it shows things that it says it's related to your video and really isn't. And you don't have control over that. It's YouTube's algorithm that really plays with that. So really, I'd always uncheck this. This is the biggest, tip here is always uncheck that. And then player controls, like, if you want this to be easy for your users, you want that checked, of course. And if you want to show the title and the player actions, essentially it's this top bar right here. You might, like, if it's your own video, you might want to uncheck that just to make it look cleaner. And then this enhance or enable privacy enhanced mode. When you mouse over, it's supposed to give you a little bit more information. It just essentially it's not going to store information about your visitors unless they play the video. So you might want this checked. And so all of these little options change this URL right here. So that source up to that last quote right here. So it's this right here. That's all you want. Of course, when you select it, highlight it, and copy it, it's going to copy everything for you. So you might as well just copy the whole thing. And then go back to your URL, paste it, and then clean it up by removing all that other garbage. You can always paste it in somewhere where you can see it a little bit better, and then clean that URL up and then paste it here. That's one way of doing it. So let's get this YouTube video out of the way. Okay, gonna click OK, save. We better show video. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So we got our trailer to the new firefighter video movie. Just kidding, Avengers. So that's fairly easy when you pick a video that you're actually allowed to embed it in your site. But when you double click this, you can embed other sources of information. Did I save your URL that you sent me? Oh, I think I did. For example, the whole issue about that the image on the front page. So here's your embedded image right here. And you probably want to give it dimensions. So what did I say? It was like 515 by something, like 350 or something. Let's try that. It's going to be close enough. And then I'm going to also center it and save it. Yes, it worked. Okay. It worked, but it's just not tall enough, which all I have to do is I'm going to drag that over here, and then I can inspect it, and, there's other ways of doing this. This one's, why is this one bigger than before? 800, 607, 800, 607. Okay, anyways, I can go back, click edit, and as you can see, like, it already worked, but let's just clean this up. 800, 607. Just so it looks nice. It's really big. Okay, so there's the image embedded in an iframe. So this would be dynamic. So whenever this source changes, it's looking at your server. So it'll pull that and not, this isn't an image on this server. So this is kind of like how it'll work on the home page, but you'll just type in the URL of the oh, I did have a question. So going back to this guy of the 3 maps, and we're going to iframe these, should it or would it always link to that source? So essentially what I'm asking is, can we just simplify it to 2 fields, the title and the source URL of that image? And then what that'll do is it'll iframe this, and then it'll still link them to like the nice big versions, but I only need to, or do you need a custom URL if it needs to link to something else?
You only want, it should only be that one on the far right, and it should always be the same source.
But
I think it's always the same source. I mean, it's been. I mean, in theory, it could change somewhere down the road, but I think that's just the nature of business. I think.
Looking back at our map over the last 5 years, we had
Same source for quite a while.
but
So those static maps are still available?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's this D1 on the end.
Yeah.
For day one. I believe so.
so we're okay just having the whatever's being iframed be the link that we're linking to, and that is going to be how it's going to work for all these for these 3 calls to action, right? These 3 maps.
now
The other 2 are actually things we upload. The only one that we go out and grab is that right-hand one, this 7-day secret protection.
Okay.
create a folder for it where we automatically go in and grab it, and we would have to upload it ourselves. Outside of the folder where we usually put it by month, just put it outside of the outlets.
Could.
But then that doesn't really take us any time there.
Can it, so I guess to add to that question, that map on the front page is actually going to exist further back in the back end. If you go to predictive outlooks, that's where it's actually going to exist. So can it link to within itself?
It can link to anything. Like, that's what I was wondering, if you want to have its own custom URL or it just shares the same image iframe URL. But it sounds like it would probably be best to just have its own custom URL, because then you can change it to whatever you want if needed. The challenge now is, and I didn't know this, is I thought they were all going to be treated the same way. Like all 3 maps are going to be treated the same way, but you're saying only the far right one needs this iframe capability?
The others are things that we upload. So like the map on the left, we upload every month to the webpage currently. Yeah, we'll be doing that. That's part of the content management system. And that the middle one is just periodically as needed. We upload that. The only one that gets pulled automatically from some other source is that one on the right.
Okay.
Well, Jeremy, you're not even doing the middle map anymore, correct?
Right. Well, we're gonna.
For Nick.
So what I'm gonna
There'll be
do?
PDFs in there.
Yeah. Well, we'll create an image file of the PDF, so there can be there'll be an image there of the list, and then when you click that link, it'll pull the PDF up that has
All the links.
clickable links to get to the.
So yeah, just that one.
It's just that one. That's,
Far right. Okay.
I thought the concern was having old data, old map up there.
it is.
Yeah, so you're saying that we aren't gonna worry about having old maps up there on the left too?
Well, once a month.
We update those now.
Right, so once a month, that image will change when the new outlook comes out.
Noon on the 1st of every month.
Okay, well, glad I asked. Okay, now there's, I think, just one last feature in here. So I'm going to click edit on my basic page again, and I'm going to add a table. I would highly recommend never using tables because they're not responsive, mobile friendly, and they're kind of a pain for you guys to manage as well. So I would try to use lists as much as possible. Never design, quote unquote, design your content in tables, because that's not what they're really meant for, even though a lot of people are guilty for doing it, just because it's kind of like the way most people were introduced how to format content for the web. But you can add tables. We do allow that with this little button right here. Looks like kind of like a little calendar, a little table guy. So click that, and it'll give you some preset options. You can pick, how many rows you have, how many columns, what the width is. Typically, you're gonna like have 100% width, but not always. Height, I would always just leave empty, and you can always change the cell spacing, the cell padding, and the border. And if you wanted to make the heading be the first row, which typically is, you could select that. And everything else you can just leave empty, but you can customize this however you like. I'm going to click OK. So I have a very simple table with 3 rows and 2 columns. And then you can just start typing in, your text. And so once you start typing your text in there, it'll kind of like auto shift around. That will try to align things so it's even as best as it can. So we have content in the table. And now, since my cursor's in this cell, if I right click, it's contextually aware that it's here, and it'll give me the appropriate options for, for editing a table. For the cell, I can insert a cell after, I could delete the cell, I can merge things. For the column, I can insert below or after, or I can completely disable this or delete this table. And I can go back to that table property panel as well. But all these are accessible once your cursor is inside the table, and then you right click, and then you can say, like, for example, let's have another row. So I can do insert row after, and I can just keep inserting rows to this table. So let's save this and see how our table looks. So it looks like a table. It's ugly. And I can go back and make changes. I can make more columns, but it's pretty self-explanatory and works just like how Word works, where you can insert columns and rows and padding and whatnot. But that's basically what you can do with tables. Bless you. One, kind of like another hint or tip as far as working with content in a WYSIWYG is this little button right here. When you mouse over it, says show blocks. And what this does is it highlights regions or blocks and tells you what they are, which is super helpful, especially if you have a ton of content in there and you can't remember exactly what's what. The only thing it doesn't highlight are lists for some reason, but it does give you an idea as far as, like, let's say you had some spacing underneath here and you're like, why isn't this a paragraph? Well, it's just a space. Like, you just hit shift return and didn't add a new paragraph. If I hit hard return, now I can visually see that empty paragraph, which is so helpful when making changes. And of course, this is just a visual cue in the back end, and then when you hit save, you're never going to see all this. But it's nice to see, like, I always see this too, like on client sites like this, and they're like, why is this page so long? It's like, well, because we have a bunch of empty paragraphs, and it's super easy to see when you have this selected. But if you don't, you're gonna just kind of go by it and just miss it. You're not gonna understand that there's all these empty paragraphs that you need to delete, and that little tool allows you to quickly see where all those little empty paragraphs are, which is really helpful to have. And that's it. That's it for the WYSIWYG, and if you let me know if you have any questions. But I think this is a good place to end today. Any questions on the WYSIWYG? And these sites, I'm sure you're gonna run back to your hotel and work on your site, which I would highly doubt anyone would. But if you want to look at it, I think these sites will be available throughout this week. And if you want to just mess around with content, just kind of, you're not going to do this. So basically,
Real one? Yes, I would go back and work on it, but not a
this is a real, kind of a real site. It's a real pretend site, okay? Yeah. But anyways, if you did want to just look at something, this is going to be still accessible anywhere. If you wanted to make changes or play with it. But yeah, we'll be probably reusing this. I don't know where Ryan is with his setup, but chances are we're probably going to be using these guys for now. But eventually Ryan will have your own little siloed real site container But this is, I mean, this is essentially the same thing. It's just this content won't live on your actual live site.